Hello, ladies and gentlemen, Cone Dodger here, and here we go. Car 3 of 3 of the Pikes Peak 1 hour build off. This is my car. My car actually ended up being, for the first time that I can ever remember, the fastest on the 1 hour build off stream beamng runs. It was flabbergasting. But here is what I did. I went for, also forced induction, on a V10. A little bit shorter than the V16 we saw last time, but still pretty extreme. That was making about 500 horsepower for a nice, I would say, 2,000 RPM or so. But overall, anywhere from 6,000 up to 9,000, pretty usable area. If there was one thing that I wish I would have done, it would be a little bit more overrun. I think that's something that maybe people don't value enough, is that when you have overrun in an engine, when you have area beyond the top of the curve, it makes cars easier to drive. You can let them go a little bit beyond peak power and not have to change gear. It's just something that gives you a little bit more flexibility on an actual race course, or in this case, in a time trial or road rally. Although maybe I wish I had changed some things, was really happy with the engine. And I think the good part of the engine comes from the gearing. Something was just really good with the gearing. The gears really matched up with each other well. One thing that I did do differently from the other two cars we've seen is that I had more of a 50-50 split power distribution. So 47 front, 53 rear. In the end, I think maybe I could have gone a little bit more to the rear to make the car a little bit more comfortable, but it was still pretty good. As I said, there's a lot of different ways you can do these. You have 1 hour to do the entire build. That means engine, chassis, trim, and fixtures. I spent a lot of time on the fixtures for this car because I wanted it to be the coolest looking of these Group B, inspired cars, and I wanted to just have crazy aero. I am super thrilled with this car. The front's a little derpy, but I think it's probably one of the coolest designs that I've come up with. I'm really happy with it. So it ended up being a rather quick car. If there's one thing I would have done differently, it's definitely in the aero department. I did a lot of stylistic decisions here, and I regret not doing a front wing. I got a lot of rear wing, not a lot of front wing. I think front wing could have made this car way better. Tire-wise, I did not do the square setup. I did a 220 front, 230 rear. I don't know really what inspired me to do that. I kind of thought this car would be a little bit more oversteery than it ended up being. Not really sure. I did larger brakes than some of my competitors, kind of tamer brakes than some of my competitors, and I think that ended up working really well for the car. It made it easy to drive on the brakes. I could use some left foot braking to help it rotate. I could dive it real deep into the turn and it wouldn't understeer on the brakes. That's something that a lot of cars fight, is understeer on the brakes. So that was good. This stuff doesn't really matter. That stuff doesn't really matter. This stuff doesn't really matter. Suspension-wise, I threw a lot of front camber in and took camber out of the back, trying to get the thing to want to turn in. I really wanted a car that would turn in nice and sharp and feel good, especially around the hairpins. And obviously it did well at that, since it did the best on the short course, which is mostly hairpins. Total car ended up being a 135 in track, and it was doing fine in many categories for a car that I didn't at all try to match into any categories. And yeah, I'm very happy with it. 500 horsepower is plenty for this car. 2,500 pounds, I think it's one of the lightest competitors too. So that ended up being a plus as well. There was one interesting thing. In the group of 3 here, this was the only car with reasonable boost. And I don't know what the real difference was there. I have half of the amount of total boost, like actual peak pressure, than the other two competitors that ended up being in the top 3. Yet I still made somewhere in the same ballpark of power. So really goes to show you that boost is not everything. It's how you use it. All right, let's hit the track and see how it does. So there you have it. Ended up being the fastest. I'm disappointed I never got a clean run in. It actually ended up being a pretty difficult car to drive. I noticed this in the short course. The car had some pretty bad understeer. Like, this amount of rear downforce was obviously too much. And I do think it could have used some different suspension tuning. But you got 1 hour. You got 1 hour, and pretty much nobody does any test driving in that. So you just gotta hope. You just gotta hope that it's gonna be right. And to be the fastest, I am very happy, but there's so much more you could do with this car to make it handle better. But overall, it makes up for it in looks. Doesn't it? Doesn't it? See, I'm disappointed to not have gotten an actual clean run in there. I tried, but I was actually physically exhausted. I did all 3 of those runs in one night. I started this project at about 5 p.m. I did not finish my last run in my car until after midnight. I got blisters on me fingers, and I hope you enjoyed, and I hope it was worth it. And I will see you next time for another 1 hour build-off review special.